right, welcome to Your Time, Your Money, the show where your time is just as valuable as your money, and we know that. Excited to have you tune in today, and welcome, Justin.
Awesome. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, it's exciting. Justin's been on our other podcast with our partner, Matt Torello, and I think this is our first time together.
Yes, it is.
This is even more exciting.
It is.
So we have a great topic today. This is probably going to be one of the most complicated topics to discuss via this format, I guess you would say, right? We like to do this topic in a educational seminar where we have a whiteboard and we have PowerPoint displays and things along that line.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot to cover, but hopefully we'll be able to get through as much as we possibly can in a reasonable amount of times.
Yeah, so without leaving our listeners guessing, we're going to be covering Social Security today.
Yep.
And not just the benefits itself, but also how it relates to spouse, survivors, and we're going to get pretty in depth on it, but we're going to try to do our best to make it seem, I guess, common
Yeah.
to the average listener.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the areas that's super important, especially when you think about retirement planning as a whole, because a lot of times for a lot of people, it might be the only set amount of income that they're going to receive from different sources.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a timely topic and an important one. So
Yeah,
I'm
great.
excited.
Well, it's your time.
Your money.
I'm going to let you do the honors.
All right, here we go.
All right. So, first thing we always tell clients is when we do Social Security seminars, and we've done hundreds and hundreds of them in the capital region, and we were doing them, kind of before it became the popular thing to do with most advisory groups in the region. But we always tell clients, you got to view Social Security as an asset class.
Yeah.
Right? If you had $1 million sitting in a bucket somewhere, you're going to do some research on it.
Yep.
Right? You're going to scrutinize it. You're going to say, what are my options? How can I maximize it? What's the risks associated with it? And that's really the mentality you have to go into Social Security planning with.
Yeah, it's going to be it's a different way of thinking of it, obviously, because most people just think of it as sort of like a stream of income instead of as an asset class. But like you were saying before, if you had $1 million sitting in an IRA, you'd probably pay pretty close attention to it, and you'd probably want to make sure that it's doing the right things and allocate it in the right way.
Yeah, you'd probably seek advice on it as well.
Exactly, yeah. So, like I said, it's one of the timely topics. It's super important. So, when you think about asset classes, not necessarily Social Security first pops to mind, but we'll kind of talk a little bit about how it's viewed a little bit differently.
Yep, and usually when we do our seminars, and even in this format, we should throw out the common questions that we get asked, about Social Security and what people can expect from this segment at least.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say probably the number one most popular one that I get, I would say 99% of the time is it going to be there for me? Will it be there? There's a lot of other ones that different claiming options.
When should I claim?
Yep.
What age is another common one?
Exactly. Do I claim early or do I delay? We'll talk about the benefits of doing that. Survivor benefits. What happens if one person passes away when individuals are both claiming benefits, and also spousal planning.
Yeah, or divorce as well. I always love it when the questions come in and the first thing they say is, "I was told," and I always ask, "Well, who were you told by?" And they were, "Oh, my friend told me."
Yep.
You know what I mean? And the first thing we always like to preface is, your friend is not always an expert.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when it comes to Social Security.
Yeah.
And it's not a cookie cutter approach. So what worked for maybe your friend or your family member may not necessarily be the best situation for yourself.
Yeah, I see that. Like you've been saying, we've done hundreds of these seminars and events, but I've seen that on the thousands of appointments that we've gone on collectively. It's just, they might get an idea from somebody that, hey, I did it this way, you should do it this way, but it might not have the same impact to their plan as it would to the person that did it, because you're two separate
Well, and to my point,
people.
when you're viewing Social Security as an asset class, right, you really have to look at your other assets.
Yep.
And what your plan is with those assets. How are you going to draw off perhaps your Roth, your 401k, your pension with the state? Mm-hmm. And not everybody has the same assets. So it can't be a cookie cutter approach, because you have to, plan these decisions in lieu of what your other assets are doing for you. Right. And that's the most important part. So, let's briefly touch on the first question that you mentioned was, is it going to be there for me, without getting into the full mathematical solvency of Social Security and whether it is. But, in your professional opinion, as well as mine, it's going to be there.
It is. It is. Like I said, we won't get too into everything that's going on, but it's going to be an asset class that you can count on through retirement planning, right?
Yeah. Plain and simple, it's not bankrupt.
Exactly.
It will take a little bit of reform to shore it up, but reform doesn't mean blowing up the system.
No.
It doesn't mean revamping Social Security, and you hear that a lot, right? Because it's a political issue, especially during election years, is that they're going to take Social Security away from you. And when I mean they're going to, it's either side, right? They're all spewing the same thing. But in order to reform the system, it could be a couple minor changes. You want to talk a little bit about some of the minor changes that they can make?
Yeah, some of the minor changes, one of them might be just increasing the amount of money that they tax, right? So right now, I think it's about $147,000 is the max number.
Yeah. So in layman's terms, if somebody makes $200,000, there's about $60,000 roughly, ballpark, that's not being taxed for Social Security benefit.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
So they're thinking about potentially making a change to increasing that number so that they can capture more income for the system through raising that dollar amount.
Yeah, so there's a minor adjustment, right? Another minor adjustment we've already seen in the full retirement age that changed.
Yes.
Right? Well, and this is where there's a little confusing, part to it, but I encourage people to go on SSA.gov, which is the Social Security Administration site, and your full retirement age is based off of your birth date.
Yep.
And it could be 66, it could be 66 in 2 months, 4 months, 8 months, everybody's got different ones depending on the year they were born.
Yep.
And then for people born later, it's 67 years old.
Yeah.
Right? So that is in itself a part of reform.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to know your FRA. We call it FRA, right? Full retirement age.
Yeah.
And that full retirement age, is important because if you work 2 extra months or 3 extra months, you're qualifying at full retirement age credits. Mm-hmm. Or beyond that, right, you're deferring it.
Yep.
So that's very important to know. And unfortunately, people don't know their full retirement age.
No, unless you look on the system and go on SSA.gov, like you were saying, you can get a good understanding of what your benefit would be by using the full retirement age number.
Yep, and you could probably just Google it too. There's a ton of calculators out there, a ton of resources out there that you can just find online with your full retirement age. But that's important to know that. Another part of reform that they can do is they can reduce cost of living adjustments.
Yep.
We call them COLA, right? It's not Coca-Cola, but COLA. We can reduce future COLAs. We can say that maybe for my kids or my grandkids, their new full retirement age is now 69.
Yep.
Right? Those are all parts of reform. So all it takes is for them to do maybe 1 or 2 to shore up the system and make sure that it's still there.
Yeah, and like you were saying before, really, it's not like the system is completely imploding. It's just like 1 or 2 small little adjustments that they would need to make to be able to keep it completely solvent for a very large period of time. And obviously, like we were saying before, it's going to be there in some shape or form for every single person.
And I know there are some listeners out there that are, well, it's the government, there's no guarantees or what have you. The one thing I have to say is any revamping of Social Security is done under a microscope.
Yes.
Meaning it's political suicide to destroy the system.
Yeah.
You're right. And no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, you want to maintain office, so you're not going to go near touching Social Security as far as revamping the system and risk not being elected, I guess you would say, right?
And obviously, there's no guarantees in anything in life, so.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think some of the topics people should understand is, number one, you have claiming options.
Yep.
Right. That's the most important. Is that it's not just one option, or you file and you're done. Right? There's tons of claiming options. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, your choice is going to impact your spouse.
Yep.
And that's where we center a lot of our focus on.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with the different types of family dynamics too. When you were talking with spousal planning, if you've had one individual who made the lion's share or the breadwinner versus somebody who stayed home and raised kids, which is sort of what my wife and I are going to be doing with our newborn girl. She's going to be staying home and raising Lauren, and I'm going to be the one that's the primary breadwinner. So when it comes down to our Social Security decision later on down the road, I might have a totally different working record than she does. So that decision that I make on my own record is going to affect how much she might be able to receive through either claiming on my own record or claiming on hers, whichever one makes the most sense.
Yeah, and we're going to get into spousal and survivor benefits, in a little bit, but most people make their decision because of that reason. Or most people make a decision not realizing that should be taken into consideration.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because usually those are the people we run into after they've already made the decision.
Yes.
And when they find out the decision they made and how it's going to affect their spouse, they can't go back.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're talking decisions that's irrevocable.
Yep.
Right? I mean, they do give you, 12 months? They give you your first year.
They give you one redo.
Back. Yeah, one redo where you can pay back your credits for the year and say, I made a mistake. But most people don't exercise that, and most people don't realize it until after the year is over. So it's an irrevocable decision.
Yeah.
Right? So we want to get it right the first time. So,
absolutely.
Those are the main things that people want to know. Ultimately, how do you basically talk to a client about Social Security? What's the first things that maybe you look at and the things that you want to bring up with Social Security and their benefits?
The first thing that I always ask them is, have they gone on to the website? Have you gone on to ssa.gov to look and to check their earnings record? Because in some scenarios and in some cases, there's incorrect earnings that are reported on their earnings record. So that's always the first thing that I ask. Have you gone on? Have you checked to make sure that your earning records are correct? That you don't have any zeros, because we've seen that sometimes.
Yeah, so let's 30,000 foot view for listeners is it's your highest 35 years of earnings.
Yep.
And think about math, right? If you throw a zero in an average, what happens? It brings down that average by quite a bit, right? So you might be getting ready to go and file for Social Security, but you might be showing 34 years of earnings and have 1 0. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a huge difference to your monthly amount in the calculation if you work one more year and remove that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It's also fun to look on and see what you made 30 some years ago, and you say, "Wow, I only made $6,800, but back then a car was $1,500."
Yeah.
But that's very important that they know their numbers. I would say maybe 1 in 10, maybe 1 in 20 people have some false earning records on Social Security. It was meaning it was misreported or not calculated right.
Yep.
And that takes a while in the system to go and change that, and you need to prove it and show your earnings to get it corrected. So I would encourage people, go on ssa.gov and look at their earnings history. And you don't necessarily have to pull out every 1099 over the last 35 years. Usually, if there's an error, you'll see a blatant drop off when you knew you were working.
Yeah, you can. It pretty obvious.
Yeah, and there might be 3 or 4 years where it was 0, 0, 0, and you're like, well, wait a minute, I didn't go on vacation, or I didn't have kids and I wasn't caring for kids at that point. So it's pretty noticeable if there's a different reporting number or discrepancy in there. So we definitely want to change those around as well. So let's delve into kind of just how to claim. Most people understand a couple different key ages with Social Security, and the first one that you hear most is age 62.
Yep.
Right, and 62 is the first year where you can claim on your working benefits, and we call it early claim, right? Claim early.
Yep.
But most people don't understand, what does that mean? Like in relation to their full retirement age. So let's say my full retirement age is 67, right? But I can claim at 62. What does that do for me?
That's going to decrease the amount of money that you're going to receive from your Social Security benefit.
Right. So most people don't phrase it this way, but it's a penalty.
It is.
On your earning benefit that you built up.
Yep.
And depending on whether you're retiring at 66 or 67, it's usually around a 30% penalty.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to get about 70% of what you earned by paying into the system.
Yep.
Right? And that's permanent. That's not something that's going to change. That's permanent. You're still going to get cost of living adjustments. But most people, why do you think most people say, I'm just claiming at 62?
Because they think that they want to get more payments, and that's how they're going to make the most out of the system, is if they claim early, if they claim at 62 versus claiming at full retirement age, let's say 67, they're getting an extra 5 years of payments, so they think that they're going to get more money in the end.
Right, and it's usually followed by the government's not making money off of me.
Exactly. Yep.
Right, but they got to understand it's actuarial tables. So mathematicians have figured out that like whether you claim at 62 or you claim later, based on life expectancy, they're going to pay out a similar benefit.
Yep.
Right, most people, their break-even point is like mid 70s, I would say, probably somewhere in that ballpark.
78, 79,
But
somewhere
really,
around
what
there.
pushes it over is the cost of living adjustments, the spousal benefit, and other benefits that are there, right?
Yeah.
The other option, which some people can do, and we're not a cookie cutter approach, so we're not by means saying everybody needs to delay, but some people choose to claim and then save the money. Right? And that's something that should be calculated into the strategy as well, is perhaps they're claiming at 62 and they're banking it, right? Putting it in an investment, putting it in something secure or something risky, something aggressive, right? That may be a suitable model for perhaps a single person.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe that doesn't have a spouse that they have to worry about or survivors that they have to worry about. Maybe they just want to maximize income and wealth early on and they want to claim at 62. Right? It doesn't always have to be the old, I called it a cruise ship analogy, right? You pay $3,000 to get on the cruise ship and they say, you're not going to make money off of me and you're eating as much at the buffet as you possibly can. Well, you like to eat a lot, so I don't know. They might not make money off of you on the boat, but but Social Security shouldn't be made in the context of that decision that they're not going to make money off of me.
Yeah. No, it's that would be the wrong way of going about it if that was the only thing that you were interested in.
So we have 62, right? That's early filing, and that's called deemed filing. So if you file at 62, all your numbers are based off of that reduction.
Yeah. Some people I've seen it, somewhat of a common misconception is that I'll claim at 62, and then once I get to 67, my value will jump up. Right? There is obviously the cost of living adjustments that can come into play, but if you claim at 62, that's what you're claiming for the rest of your life. You're claiming at that 62 age.
Yeah, so when you get your statement, if you're getting a physical statement, you're close to retirement. If not, it's online. You'll see values at age 62, values at age 66 and some odd months, or 67, and values at age 70.
Yep.
You are not getting all of those benefits.
Correct, yeah.
That's one benefit based on the age of you filing.
Yes.
So it's not like you're getting $1,300 at 62, $1,800 on top of that at 67, and then $3,000 at 70. It would be nice.
Yes, it would, but
that's not how it works.
Correct, yeah.
So we've got filing at 62, and technically you don't have to wait full years either, right? When you get a printout from Social Security, it shows you a monthly benefit.
Yep.
So if you file at 62 or you file at 62 in 3 months, those 3 months will actually add value to your benefit.
Yes,
They'll add a couple dollars to that,
Yep.
right? But most people know about claiming early and the reduction and then where their full retirement is. But then what happens if they delay after?
Yeah, they actually get an increase in their benefit, or they get what's called delayed credits. So they get an 8% increase on whatever their value of your Social Security was from their full retirement age all the way up until age 70. So if your claiming age is 67, you'd get an 8% increase at 68, an 8% increase at 69, and an 8% increase at age 70.
Wow, so you can go up to 132 of your benefit, right?
Yep, if your claiming age was 66.
Yep,
and then
or 124 if your claiming age was 67.
Exactly.
Because you'll lose that 8% increase or whatever.
Yep.
But that that's important to know. And going back to the kind of our original statement is think about that from an asset class. Where can you put $1 million and get an 8% increase?
Yeah.
Right. Not many places.
No.
Right. And I think the kicker on that is it's not just the 8%. It's also the cost of living adjustment.
Correct.
Right. So when we go through a high period of inflation like we're going through now, it could be 8% plus, say 6 or 7.
Yep.
It could be a 15% increase in that monthly payment.
Yeah.
That's huge. I mean, I don't know too many investments out there that are going to tout a 15% or even an 8% increase.
Yeah.
In a market that's volatile.
We always make the joke if we had another type of product or solution out there that was giving, in that case, an 8% rate of return, we would be having a different seminar.
Yeah, everybody would be getting into it, right?
Exactly.
Right? But Social Security is giving that
to
you as the quote-unquote investor by putting your service credits and your money into the Social Security system. They're giving you that in the delaying of that. But, so now that we know like kind of 62, 67, 66, and then age 70, what's based on that decision, right? The first is always health.
Yep. Right?
An individual has to look at that.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And that's why we say that it's not a cookie cutter approach. It's easier enough for me to say. Because you could have an individual who has longevity in their family that has two parents that lived all the way into their mid-90s, and you could have somebody on the complete opposite side of the spectrum that had an individual that passed away as soon as they started claiming at 62. They only made it to 63.
Yeah, maybe no male has lived past 65 in that household.
Exactly. It's going to be a way different conversation, and also your personal health, right? How healthy you are. I mean, in some situations.
Have you had a history of cancer?
Exactly.
Have you had a history of heart disease?
Yep.
Are you on 15 medications
Yep.
or whatever? Those health decisions are going to really heavily weight you towards whether you're going to claim early or not.
Yeah.
Right? Because if life expectancy isn't there, you're not going to make out by delaying.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is important. But on the other side, like you said, I mean, I had grandparents that lived to 98, 99 years old. Yeah. Well, there's a pretty good chance that I have longevity in my blood, so I may want to reconsider that based on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And not to mention, with the advances in healthcare, people that are mid 70s and 80s are very healthy nowadays.
And very active.
And very active. You know what I mean? They say, oh, the 80s is what 70 was years ago or whatever it might be. So that's important. It's not necessarily quantity of life, but it's also quality of life. Mm-hmm. And if you feel you're going to have a long quality life, you're going to want to delay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to benefit you. Some of the other things there is there an income need, mm-hmm. right? That's got to play into the decision as well. There's a lot of people that have a pension. There's a lot of people that have fixed asset sources that they can dip into, or 401k, Roth IRA, that type of stuff. So they might not need the income right now. Yeah. And by deferring it, it allows us to do some more creative planning.
Yeah, it does. And one of the other things is dependent on when you're planning on taking your Social Security. If you're still working, then that can have an adverse effect on the actual benefit that you get.
So let's talk about that, right? If you claim before full retirement age, you're talking, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so if you claim at 62 and you plan on still working, what happens?
They're going to reduce your benefit.
Yeah, so you can make up to, what is it, 19...
Yeah, they changed it.
19,560.
Yeah.
So $19,560.
Mm-hmm.
For every $2 over that, they're going to take $1 of Social Security back.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like you can claim at 62 and then go and work and make $50,000 a year.
Yep.
And not, expect your benefits to be... reduced. And that's one of the things where, a lot of clients think, I can just claim and work.
Yep.
And, well, you can, but there's a limit to what you can make.
Yeah.
Right? And some people do that. Some people claim and work part-time. Maybe they get a job at Stewart's or they get a job at Walmart as a greeter or something like that because they want to be out of the house.
Yep.
But you find a lot of people will actually go and talk and work with their employers and say, hey, I only can make this 19 and change.
Yeah.
Right? So they put them on a flexible schedule. Maybe come the end of the year, they've capped out, so they're not in Home Depot stocking shelves or whatever it is for November and December, which is probably when they don't want to be, right around the retail time or whatever. Exactly. But a lot of times employers will work with you on that as well, which is a good thing. So let's take a break for a second and get into kind of our fun time, which is Community Spotlight time, which we're always excited about. And today's Community Spotlight is going to be Rush Brothers Construction. They do a lot of work in the Capital District area. They're located at 424 Old Niskayuna Road, Latham, New York, 12110 518 785-4100, and that's Rush Brothers Construction. Great firm to work for if you're looking at any type of construction work. They've done a lot of local branches for some of the local banks in the area as well, and commercial work. Just a very good roundabout contracting company to call. So once again, Rush Brothers Construction.
Yeah, I'm gonna need a roof here soon, so I may be giving him a call. Yeah, 31-year-old roof, I think.
Right when you have the baby too.
Yeah, right.
That's lovely.
Yeah, baby, new roof, probably siding at some point. It's kind of a mess, but we'll get through it.
So let's get into some of the other nuances of Social Security, and most people don't realize that by delaying, one of the biggest benefits and something that we try to implement into a retirement plan is the fact that delaying allows you time to do conversion or income planning or planning with your 401k or your IRA. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, and we can just fill the clients in on the decision of why they may want to delay for some of those reasons?
Yeah, most people are going away from having some sort of pension, right? So we're seeing that more individuals are using deferred accounts like 403bs, 401ks, and IRAs to put money into. right around 72 years old, there's going to be something coming right down the pike there where you're going to have to take out what's called an RMD, or a required minimum distribution. So what we do a lot of times is we look at, like you were saying, using Social Security as an asset class and in the full picture of a plan, is that if you can delay Social Security, delay credits, right, till perhaps 70, you can help to draw down on some of those other asset classes so that when you do get to 72 years old, you're not having to take out as much of a lump sum from your deferred accounts like your 401ks, your IRAs, so your RMD is lower. So what that allows us to do is that allows us to do, let's say, like you were saying, conversion options, traditional IRA to Roth IRA conversions. It frees you up to have a little bit more flexibility in your plan overall, and it allows you to do a little bit more of advanced planning, as opposed to just kind of looking at it in a vacuum. It really allows you, it opens up a lot of different things that you can do.
Yeah, and that's a key point. You know, I don't know how many listeners have thought about this concept that if I delay Social Security, I'm giving up a monthly payment for a little bit of time, but in exchange, I may be saving hundreds of thousands of dollars on my portfolio through proper tax planning. And that's
Yes.
that's a number that most people can't comprehend because if they claimed early and they just went through the normal required minimum distribution process, they won't know it. They'll just pay taxes. They might grumble and say, oh, I'm paying so much to Uncle Sam or whatever, but they won't see the mathematical benefit of the delay and then the reduction in taxes perhaps later down the road that they're going to have to pay on the required minimum distribution.
Yep.
So that concept alone, once we put pen to paper and can illustrate it and graph it out for clients and show them the difference of what they'll be able to perhaps save in their tax planning with their CPA,
Yeah.
you know, it's pretty eye-opening.
It could be significant.
And in some cases, you know, people who came to us that said, hey, you know what, we're going to claim at 62, after we did the full plan for them and discussed it with their CPA, all of a sudden they're like, why would I claim at 62?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the planning just clicks when you start, you know, putting it into the full context of what they're doing with their asset and their income.
Yeah.
And you know, that's a very powerful thing to be able to say, is that I saved a client a couple $100,000 on taxes because of the strategy that I used.
Yeah.
You know, and that's important. So, you know, one of the other things too that people don't understand is as income continues to grow and compound, that it affects their Medicare.
Yep.
And we're not going to get into a full Medicare session today, right? But it's important because it's part of Social Security in the sense that it comes down to the payments.
Yep.
But your Medicare premiums are based off of what?
Your income.
Your income,
Yep.
right? So they take half your Social Security and then your income from your other sources
Yep.
to calculate out your Medicare premium. So if you're not getting the Social Security planning done right, you could be needlessly costing yourself hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in extra healthcare costs down the road. And that's something where we want to bring that to the table for a client when we do a review.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we want to paint that picture of what their health insurance and their health care costs are going to look like in context with claiming for Social Security and their other assets.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you work with an advisor that does a holistic financial plan.
Yep.
And that's why you work with an advisor like the Esley Group that does the full picture and doesn't just look at one specific area, because there are a lot of decisions that you make that are going to affect other decisions down the road.
Yeah, and to your point, we can't make any of our financial decisions in a bubble.
Exactly.
We can't say, oh, we're going to look at Social Security and decide what to do with it. Oh, I'm going to look at my Roth and decide what to do it. I'm going to look at my 401k. You got to look at them all together.
Absolutely.
Right, and that's important. So I know we're jumping around a little bit here, but I think we should, you know, maybe focus on the spousal and survivor benefits so that people can understand the context of their decision in regards to their spouse or their survivor. Heaven forbid they pass away, right? So, you know, an advantage to a married couple is that each individual can either claim on their own record or they can claim on their spousal record.
Correct. Yep.
Right. So what's that mean? Like in your situation where you're the major breadwinner and your wife's going to be, you know, a homemaker, a very valuable position, right? And Social Security kind of came up with these rules because they said, hey, you know what? You know, the spouse at home is a full-time job.
Absolutely.
And there's a value to that. Right. And so they want to compensate the spouse at home for that, being the fact that they might not be in the workforce.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So to make it really simple, I'm just going to use full retirement age numbers. So my full retirement age is 67. So my wife Megan will have access to be able to claim 1/2 of what my primary insurance amount or my PIA number is. So that's the number that I'll be receiving. So if I'm going to be receiving $2,000 in Social Security, my wife can get $1,000.
Nice. So household, $3,000 a month if you both wait till full retirement age.
Correct.
To claim.
Yeah.
Right. Now, why wouldn't a spouse claim on that record? Well, maybe if they had a earnings history and their benefit was $1,300, doesn't make sense to claim on the spousal record because they would be taking less.
Yep.
And Social Security is pretty good at not letting you take less, meaning the people that you deal with at the Social Security Administration, they'll walk you through your numbers and they'll give you some limited recommendations as far as, it doesn't make sense for you to take that because your benefit's higher or what have you. But that's important to understand because a lot of people think, it's just my record. And your spouse claiming on your record does not affect yours.
Correct.
Right? So, that's one benefit. Another benefit that people forget about is that when you pass away, and this is where it's important to do some of the planning, is that your spouse is going to either get theirs or yours.
Yep.
But one drops off.
Yes, it does.
Right? So they go from two claims coming in to now one. Right? So think about it in this context, right? You're the major breadwinner, but you say, I'm just collecting at 62. They're not going to make money off of me. I'm going to take them for all they're worth, right? And now you've just locked into 70% of your benefit, and your spouse can get half of that. But let's say you pass away, you've just locked into that reduction forever for your spouse.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a huge decision right there.
It is, and when we talk about that, I don't know the exact numbers, but statistically, I think there's like a 35% chance that at least one spouse is going to live over the age of 90 now. I don't know the exact number, but I think it's right around there. It's like 30 to 35% probability that somebody is going to live into their 90s for a two-spouse household.
Yeah. So if your benefit, just put that into numbers perspective. So if your benefit at full retirement age is $2,000, and you claim at 62, you're going to walk away with, what's that, about $1,400 a month, right? Well, if you pass, your spouse is going to get the $1,400, right? But let's say you delayed to age 70, and just by delaying to age 70, perhaps with COLA, your benefit's about $4,200 a month now. So you pass away, your spouse is going to get that $4,200 a month, right? So that's the difference of $1,400 to $4,200 for a surviving spouse. That's a huge decision that needs to be put into context before you decide whether you're going to claim early or not.
Yeah, and you're talking about a month.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For however long that spouse happens to live for.
Yeah. So $18,000 a year, right? Say the numbers, $18,000 a year versus 50-some thousand a year in Social Security benefit.
Yep.
So perhaps maybe you don't have life insurance. Perhaps you're uninsurable. Maybe because you have asthma or diabetes or something, and you can't protect your spouse in other ways.
Yeah.
You might want to say, hey, I'm going to defer my benefit till 70 because my survivor benefit is more important for my spouse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And in that spousal context, we always get asked a lot about divorce benefits. Right. So spouse and ex-spouse. Right. So two going at it. So, so for a spouse, you need to be married 9 months to be able to be eligible for your spousal benefit, right? But for divorce, you need to be married for how long?
10 years.
10 years, right?
Yep.
So
magic number.
Right now, there's a lot of listeners going, how many years was I married to him? How many years did I marry her?
Yep.
But 10 years, you're eligible, assuming that you didn't remarry, to claim on your ex's record.
Yep.
Right? So what happens if I got married, I was married 11 years, and then I got divorced, and then I got married again, and I was married another 10 years, and then I got divorced. Whose can I claim on?
Either one.
Either one.
Whichever one's higher.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll tell you which one.
Whichever one's higher.
Right? Whichever one's higher, right?
Exactly.
And what's important, though, is that you're not remarried.
Yes.
Right? And we joke around with this in some of our seminars that, love usually only goes as far as Social Security.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You see a lot of people in Florida that are, not really married, but together.
The domestic partnership.
Domestic partners.
I love you, just not enough to lose my ex.
Yes, not as much as Social Security. But so the other thing too is let's say I was married for 10 years to 3 different people. All 3 different spouses could claim on my earnings record.
Correct, and it doesn't affect your record at all.
Yeah, it doesn't affect mine at all.
Yeah.
So, I could have 3 exes. Well, Linda would kill me, but I could have three exes claiming on my record when I retire, and I can still get my normal retirement.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So it's important to know that you want to bring these these issues up to the Social Security Department and let them know, and you probably have to prove marriage and Social Security number and stuff like that, and they can do the research to find out which one's higher. But when you claim on those records, if you're divorced, your ex doesn't even know.
Correct.
You might want to send them a little thank you card, right? Thank you for that extra Social Security benefit from the 10 years that we were married or what have you.
Awesome.
But divorce benefits are a good part of our planning, and nowadays they say over 50% of the population ends up in divorce, unfortunately. Yeah. And it plays a role in the tax code and in Social Security planning and code as well. But from a survivor standpoint, if your spouse passes away and you're not caring for a child, so if your kids are grown and out of the house and a spouse passes away, you have a blackout period. And I think it's important that we mention that in this episode because a lot of people think, oh, well, I'll be able to get theirs if they pass away, right? But a lot of times there's a lot of people out there that are 55 or 56. Yep. The kids are through college or just finishing up college, and they're not technically children anymore, and the spouse passes away. Yep. Well, what happens?
You get a reduced benefit, and it depends on when you claim, right? So there's that blackout period where you can't get any benefit until 60.
So from 55 or 56 to 60, there's nothing.
There's nothing. You don't get. I think you get like a one-time payment of like 200 and
your death benefit,
$225 bucks,
$255 bucks,
$255
for paying in the Social Security for 30 years.
Yeah, but between that, let's say 56, somebody passes away at 56, they don't receive anything until
for 4 years
until 60, which at that point, it's a reduction of your benefit. So if you want to get your full benefit, you have to wait until full retirement age.
Yeah. So there could be a blackout period where your spouse passes away, and that's a danger zone for a lot of our state workers as well. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Is those last couple of years before retirement where they pass away and the spouse doesn't get the pension, they just get 3 times the salary, and there's no Social Security, and all of a sudden there's not enough money there.
Yeah.
And that's a scary part, and that's why we do that planning together with your pension strategy, with your life insurance strategy, with your Roth or deferred comp or whatever it might be, which is important as well. So, a lot of things that we want to put in context there. Let's talk about maybe some of the things that the Social Security Administration can and can't do, right? Because a lot of times people will go in and talk to the specialists at Social Security, and they'll think they can do financial planning. But what are some of the things that they can do or they can't do?
Yeah, they can tell you the amount that you're entitled to get, and they are allowed to give you an estimate of your individual benefits, right? So they can do that. They can't give you future projections based upon different scenarios and strategies, so they can't really run a plan for you. They can't help you with different types of strategies to maximize your benefit. They can't do what you were saying before of
tax strategies,
different types of spousal plannings, stuff like that. They can't do that portion of things because their main focus is just to kind of help you along the process of claiming your benefit
and not understanding the numbers.
Exactly, not necessarily giving you a strategy of how you should claim. They can just kind of say, hey, if you want to claim, I can plug in your numbers and send you a check.
Yeah, they're just going to give you the ins and outs of the system that they know.
Yeah.
There's no other entry that they're going to require you to do of your asset base, of your life expectancy, or anything along that lines. They're just there for the strategy.
Yep.
Here's your Excel spreadsheet, so to speak, with all your monthly payments and what you're eligible for. Yep. And they can say, well, I think you should take this one, but that's in the context of just the numbers on the sheet.
Correct.
That's not in context of any of your financial matters or health matters or anything along that lines, which is unfortunate. But they're not advisors in that sense where they go in and make the full decision and stuff like that. So, what else with Social Security do you find is important that our listeners know?
I mean, a lot of the things that I talk to individuals about, and a lot of the things that they don't realize is just that the impact of what making a good Social Security decision can make, right? So we have a system, Money Guide Elite, where we can go through and we can put different scenarios in, like you were talking about, and being able to make the correct Social Security decision can mean the difference of thousands and thousands of dollars later on in your retirement, whether it be through tax savings or whether it be through just properly claiming, doing a proper spousal claim, things like that. So we covered a lot of different topics, but I mean, I think the main thing is, and the key takeaway is just that when you're thinking about your Social Security, you have to sit down with a professional in order to be able to really look at exactly what the perfect claiming strategy can be for you. We have a actual spousal calculator that'll show you down to the month exactly what you could receive. Like you were saying, that they can't predict the future scenarios. Well, we have different calculators and things that we can do that can help to predict what that would look like down the road for your retirement picture.
Yep. Well, the other thing too, that by looking at it as an asset class that provides income, right, is for some households that we work with, they don't need Social Security.
Yep.
You know, we work with some households where there's one large pension or two large pensions coming in, sizable assets that can generate tons of income off of fixed vehicles, you know, bonds, you know, fixed payments, anything along that lines. And there might not even be a need for Social Security. Yeah. So perhaps maybe you're looking at some ways to think outside the box, where you're taking an entire Social Security payment and putting it into a wealth transfer vehicle for your kids or grandkids. Yeah. Maybe something through an irrevocable trust, maybe something that bridges generations and creates, you know, a benefit for, you know, kind of that legacy planning, kids, grandkids, things along that lines. And a lot of times people don't know the questions to ask because they haven't thought outside the box. And that's our job, is to go in there and say, hey, you know what, for retirement, you're going to be fine, but let's talk about the bigger issue. Yeah. You know, let's talk about leaving more money to the kids or grandkids and leaving it more tax efficiently, or leaving it through an estate that's going to maybe be protected from long-term care. And those are all the things that Social Security can do for you, because it is a guaranteed payment coming in for you every month. Yep. Right? So you want to make sure that you're taking your time with your decision.
Absolutely.
One, don't feel rushed. So let's recap a little bit, right? Don't feel rushed. Understand your numbers. You're definitely going to want to go on SSA.gov if you haven't already. Create an account. You're going to get asked security questions. If you fail the security questions, which you can do because they ask you like which mortgage company or which lending company did you have 28 years ago, and you might not know, just let it reset and try again. But once you get on, review your numbers, review your earnings history, make sure they're accurate, make sure that there's no discrepancy, know how many years of earnings you have, know if you're showing the full 35 or not, right? Because that should be part of your strategy as well. And then review your life expectancy, right? Talk with your spouse about the benefits and what they will get when you pass away. I think that's very powerful, because when you're talking to your spouse about taking a reduced benefit, and you're saying to your spouse, when I die, you're going to get significantly less, it all of a sudden hits home a little bit more, and you start, you know, kind of putting that in the context of your decision. Yeah. You know, so you want to have that discussion with your spouse, and then also you want to make sure that you're talking with your advisor. Right? You want to plan that domino out, so to speak, with the other dominoes, so that everything goes down nicely, you know, in retirement. Any other things that listeners should keep track of, and key points that we should have as a takeaway?
No, I just think that if they, you said that speak with your advisor. If they don't have an advisor, find someone that you trust, and talk to them about it.
Yeah, and as always, you can find the Esley Group to help you with your Social Security planning and retirement planning needs at 800-222-3202, at yourtimeyourmoney.net, and that's .net for your net worth, or at 43 British American Boulevard in Latham, New York, 12110. And as always, it's your time,
your money.